Doug and I didn't talk about that this afternoon,
Okay.
so, okay. So,
I knew I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
So, but I'm here this evening.
Okay. It was to introduce us. That's what I have on the agenda.
If there's that close to the water, I want to talk to him.
May I ask you to stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. While you're standing, can I ask you to remain standing? I wanted to take a moment and recognize the passing of a longtime resident, and we'll have a moment of silence for him, but I wanted to just give you a little history of the gentleman I'm referring to. Chief Gary Whitehead, who passed away last week, was a Bayville born and raised and a descendant of an early Bayville settlers. Gary joined the Bayville Fire Company in 1960 and was recognized for his 50 years of service with the title of Honorary Chief. I can ask you to just stand for a moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to introduce Allison Brasco from the Nature Conservancy. She'll be speaking on behalf of the BECC. She's here with Dan Kreisberg, and she'll be talking to us about coastal resiliency. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. As you heard, my name is Allison Branco. I'm the Director of Climate Adaptation for the Nature Conservancy in New York. In case you don't know, the Nature Conservancy is a big global nonprofit organization. And here in New York, we do lots of different things. We work on climate change and water quality, land protection, stewardship, things like that. And I've been talking a little bit with the Conservation Commission about coastal resiliency. I've been talking to lots of different municipalities about this across the island and across the state, actually. And so Dan asked me to come and just give you sort of a brief version of what we've been talking about sort of what we're expecting to see changes coming to Long Island and to Bayville, and some suggestions about how you might want to get started sort of thinking and planning to prepare for these things that we're seeing. So as you know, our climate is changing and it's getting a lot warmer. That, of course, comes with changes in air temperature, but for those of us living on an island like Long Island, it's really the changes that are happening to the water that are the ones most important and that are starting to impact us all across the state, actually, not just on Long Island, but certainly here on Long Island to all of our coastal communities. So we're seeing changes in the habitat in the water. For example, we're losing a lot of seagrass. We're seeing changes in plant and animal species. Fish ranges are moving around, so we're seeing a lot more warm water species, a lot less cold water fish. Our harmful algal blooms are getting worse and more frequent. Lots of things like that. We're seeing a lot more storms. So I think we've had quite a year for storms this year already. And I think everybody is seeing, we're just having more hurricanes. We're also having bigger, stronger hurricanes. And it's not just hurricanes, nor'easters as well are a problem. And I think Bayville is well aware of the issues that come when hurricanes and nor'easters come and create a lot of flooding. But maybe the more important thing that I want to talk about is sea level rise, because that is a much slower moving problem, but one that we really need to start preparing for. So when a hurricane or a nor'easter comes and creates flooding, the water comes and stays for a day or a few days, and then it recedes again, and everyone can sort of get back to life. Oftentimes you have to make some repairs, but you can go back to living in your house and everything is fine. Your roads become unflooded eventually and passable. But with sea level rise coming, it's sort of like that storm level of water is going to be coming in a more permanent way. And it's of course moving much slower. We've had about a foot of sea level rise just since the year 2000. And we're expecting 6 to 7 feet by the end of the century. So in the next 80 years or so, 6 or 7 feet of sea level rise higher than it was in the year 2000. So if you can imagine, that's higher than I am tall. And if you imagine yourself standing on the beach and looking back at the land, that vertical distance of water equates to a tremendous distance inland that water can travel and flood things. And the good news is, especially in Bayville, you have a little bit of time before that's going to happen. It'll be 6 or 7 feet at the end of the century. It'll be a few feet in the next 10, 20, 30 years, the lifetime of all of these folks' mortgage, for example. But what I want to say to you today is that it's time to start preparing for that situation now, because if we wait until people's homes are chronically flooded and becoming difficult to live in, it will be too late to make the changes that we need to make. And there are a lot of communities like Bayville, especially small ones, where the flooded areas, maybe people will eventually want to move out of them, but there's not a lot of space for them to move to and stay within the village, right? Because Bayville is pretty well built out. You don't have a ton of turnover in your housing. So that's the kind of thing that takes a lot longer to plan for. Of course, we want to keep folks in town, we want to keep them in the community, in the schools, we want to keep their tax money here for our budget, so we have to plan to make a place for them to stay in the village. I have just a couple numbers to give you. So by 2100 in Bayville, we're expecting about 990 homes to be at risk of current flooding, and that's defined as like about every 2 weeks being flooded. So about 1,000 homes. According to the Union of Concerned Scientists, that's 37% of the homes in Bayville. So that's a lot of residents who, in the future, will be dealing with chronic flooding. And of course, that's not going to happen tomorrow, but it will start to happen gradually. We'll see groundwater flooding, basements flooding, streets flooding, the stormwater infrastructure not working the way it should be. That'll be sort of the first thing we see, along with hurricanes. And then it will be sort of every once in a while there'll be a real high tide that causes flooding, and then it'll be, you know, every couple of months, and then every month, and then every 2 weeks. It'll change very gradually. But 37% of the homes in Bayville, that's a lot. And so my message to you is that it's time for the village to start the process. It's unfortunately a very slow process, but start the process of incorporating this information into your planning, into your zoning, into everything that you do, so that you can prepare the village to handle these changes and hopefully keep the residents in the village. The Union of Concerned Scientists study that I mentioned, I'll just give you a couple more statistics from that. So, according to that study, what they did was they used the real estate app Zillow that I know many of you are familiar with. So these numbers are not perfect, of course, but it gives you sort of an estimate. So those 989 homes are worth a collective $394 million, housing almost 2,500 people and contributing $8 million to the local property tax base. So as the board, you spend a lot of time on the village budget, I know. If you had to lose $8 million from the tax base and from the budget, that would be catastrophic for the village. So that's why we need to start planning to make room for these folks to stay in Bayville, either in the houses they're in some other condition, or elsewhere in the village, so that you can keep your population, keep your tax base, and keep Bayville going. And then one other thing that's important is not just the residents, but you of course need to look at your critical infrastructure, some of your critical services, your fire department. You know, if you look at flood maps, I didn't bring any maps with me today, but I will tell you on the Bayville website, you have some great maps. If you go right on the homepage of the Bayville website and click flood readiness, there's some really nice maps there. And what you'll see is that really although there's a good portion of Bayville that is not flood prone, there's also a good portion that is flood prone. But importantly, many of your access points are flood prone. So those are the kind of things that you have to start taking into account and sort of planning that, upgrades to those roads, maybe creating bridges. It doesn't have to be done now, but it sort of needs to be planned into your capital budget for the future, and probably accessing lots of grants to pay for those kind of projects. So that's the sort of thing that takes time, and I want to encourage you to start that planning process now, so that you can do that before a road gets washed out and no one can access their home, but do it proactively so that we can keep Bayville going. I know that you're already working on your bridge, the Bayville Bridge. That's great news. I know it's probably very annoying for those of you that go over it every day, but it's a really important project to keep that area of town functioning as sea level is rising. And there are going to be lots more projects like that that you're going to need to do and start planning for. So a couple of ideas that I've talked with the Conservation Commission about. The first thing that I always recommend to municipality is a vulnerability assessment. You've actually got some of that information already compiled on your website in that flood readiness area. I don't know if there's a big study behind that. I'm assuming that it came either from the county or from some other study, but you may have much of that vulnerability assessment already done. But what you want to do is sort of inventory the residential areas, the commercial areas, and then the critical infrastructure and critical services that are vulnerable to flooding, and then sort of prioritize them. You know, what is the most important to address first? Which things do we have some more time to wait on? So a vulnerability assessment that does that kind of thing is a great way to sort of kick off the process, and you can get the whole community involved in identifying. They can tell you where they see flooding. The maps are not perfect ever, and so a lot of times it's really important to get information from community members about where flooding is happening and where it's not. And then you can evaluate and sort of inventory all those things, figure out how much it would cost and what kind of projects would need to be done, get them incorporated in the Nassau County Hazard Mitigation Plan, and start applying for grants to do whatever projects it is you determine need to be done. Like I said, this will be a process. You'll need probably an engineering consultant at some point down the road to do a lot of these things. So now is the time to get started on that. And there are a ton of grants available out there, both from the state and the federal government to do these projects. And I do want to just mention a couple of other programs that might be useful to look into. I know the Conservation Commission has already started to look into these. So the state of New York has a program called Climate Smart Communities. And that started out being very focused on sort of green energy, greenhouse gas reduction, and it does still have a lot of those components, but it's starting to now incorporate a lot more adaptation components as well. So you could get some grants and some technical assistance from the state to do projects like that, such as a vulnerability assessment, such as a climate resilience plan for the village, those kind of things. And then the federal government has a program called the Community Rating System, and that's done by FEMA. And the whole purpose of the Community Rating System is to help the community. It's similar to Climate Smart Communities. It basically gives you a whole bunch of options for things you can do, changes to your building codes, and different planning projects, different village rules, regulations, all these different things that you can do that make your community more resilient to flooding. And the community rating system in particular is designed, it's sort of like a point system, and it brings down the flood insurance rates for everybody in the community. And with new flood insurance rates coming down the pike for us very, very soon, I know that's a hot topic for folks. So the community rating system can be a good program for a municipality to start to get into, and start doing some of those projects on that list, and that will help everyone in the community be able to afford to live in the flood zone more easily. So those are a couple ideas, and a very brief summary of sort of what Bayville is expecting to see in the coming years. And I would love to hear your feedback, answer any questions you have, and hopefully, as the Conservation Commission starts to look into these different options and talk with you more about what Bayville might be able to do, they'll have your support.
Any questions? The Army Corps of Engineers came up to Bayville several years ago, and their plan was to build a wall around the village of Bayville. It was impractical. In other areas, like the smaller houses on the South Shore, they elevate them. Is there a third option?
Yes, the third option is to buy them and help those families relocate elsewhere. That's happening, that's starting to happen on the South Shore also.
If we have that much open land in Bayville.
Well, that's exactly right. You don't have open land in Bayville.
That's right.
And you don't have, thousands of homes turning over every year in Bayville. So oftentimes what happens, buyouts happen in a big bunch all at once after a hurricane or some other kind of a disaster, and that's really hard for the real estate market to absorb. But if you start to do it very slowly, as people are ready to sell, if you have a program, or as zoning, if you're updating your comprehensive plan and you want to change zoning, maybe you don't add new homes to the floodplain. There's a lot you can do other than buy out 1,000 houses at once.
One thing you didn't mention in the list of things that would happen if there was, the water table would rise, would be our system of taking care of the personal waste of the individual homes.
You're right, I didn't mention that, and that's a major omission. That is really important.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Something that we could deal with sooner rather than later. Are there major grants available if the village determined that it would be in the best interest of the village, of the people in Bayville, to reform the village and take the wastewater out of the village and send it over to Glencoe to be processed?
Well, I can't comment where you should send it, but yeah,
a lot of other places.
Yes, absolutely. So septic systems are designed to make the water drain away down into the ground. And all of the regulations are based on a separation distance between the bottom of that distribution system and the groundwater table. And all homes along the coast, all over Long Island, are already very close to that limit. And so as groundwater rises, you're getting, your septic systems are working less and less the way they were designed to. And so essentially what we're doing is putting our wastewater more quickly into the water that we're swimming in and fishing in and kayaking in and all of those things, which is not good for anyone.
My question is, this may be unfair to ask you, but are you aware of any major grants that are available through the state or the federal government for a locale like Bayville to replumb itself and move its wastewater out into
Yes, so there is something called the State Revolving Fund, which is actually federal funding that comes through the state, and lots of water infrastructure projects are done with that funding. But the best news is that coming for us in the very near future are two important programs. So first, the infrastructure bill that we've all been hearing lots about in the news just over the last couple of weeks. That will have tons and tons of money for wastewater infrastructure. So that's the kind of thing that a village like Bayville can access. The details are yet to be worked out how that will be administered, but it will probably come through the state. So the sooner you start talking with the state about your desire to do that, the better. And then the other thing is New York State is going to have an Environmental Bond Act on the ballot this coming November, so just under a year from now. And that will pay for lots of different things, but there's a large portion of that that's set aside for water quality projects, exactly like sewering a village, like Bayville, upgrading septic systems, those kind of things. So that will be an opportunity too at the state level to access money for water quality upgrades.
And we also have Nassau County funding available that I believe there's about 22 applications already out there for the new septic systems that have been created, and there's grants available, and I believe Doug, our building inspector, said that at least 22 homes in Bayville have applied for those grants.
That's great.
There's 200 grants available, actually, from Nassau County.
And I believe Bayville residents, I believe there's at least 22 applications there from Bayville residents.
And there should be more and more over the next several years made available through that.
Is that the system designed to remove the nitrogen?
Yes.
The problem with that in Bayville is, unlike Suffolk, we don't have large plots of land in many houses. We would not be able to put in a system that large. But it's still going to suffer from the same problem if the groundwater rises. I'm more concerned about the availability of funds to replumb the village, ship it all to Glen Cove, and hopefully it goes out someplace else.
So some of those systems actually are better designed than a traditional septic system for small lots and for high groundwater. So some of them will be better in the situation of rising groundwater. But certainly not all of them will work, so they would have to be chosen very carefully for a place like this. But yeah, there definitely is funding available for sewering projects as well.
Allison, can you repeat the time frame and the height difference in the water that you mentioned?
Yes, and I can send you some information that you can sort of see each foot when we expect that to happen. So if you assume a baseline of about the year 2000, we've had almost a foot in sea level rise just since then, over the last 20 years.
Is that right?
That's right. About 10 inches, really, not quite a foot. And then what we're expecting by 2100, so 80 years from now, we're expecting between 6 and 7 feet of sea level rise. And it's a curve, so it won't be a straight line. It will be less early on, and then it will speed up. But we're expecting 6 to 7 feet by the end of the century.
It's pretty significant, isn't it?
Absolutely is, yeah. It will change the entire makeup of Long Island. The East End forks are all going to be little archipelagos of islands rather than a big ball.
A lot of bridges going up.
A lot of bridges going up. And Bayville is a place surrounded by bridges, so I think, not only you, but some of your neighbors need to be thinking about this as well. Like Center Island, for example, is dependent on Bayville to get in. So it's the kind of thing that you might want to talk with some of your neighboring communities about too.
Well, thanks for coming tonight. Appreciate that.
Thanks for having me.
Allison, excuse me, I just have one more question. The Army Corps of Engineers, do they have any other ideas?
The Army Corps of Engineers has lots of ideas. So I will say the Army Corps of Engineers is made up of engineers. And so all of their ideas are about building things to build our way out of this problem. There are lots of things we can build that will be a temporary solution, but nothing is going to keep back the ocean, and that's the important thing to remember. So you know, we can do some of these temporary solutions to give us a little extra time to do the planning to accommodate all of this water, but the water is coming whether we like it or not. So, you know, I would not suggest a wall around Bayville, because who wants to live in Bayville when it's surrounded by a big wall of concrete? Then it's not Bayville anymore, then it's just concrete Wallville. So nobody, you know, that's not the kind of solution that Bayville wants. So you're gonna have to start thinking about some more flexible, more comprehensive options. And, you know, really the most important thing is to just start the conversation with the community about, we're gonna have a community with a lot more water. What do we want it to look like here in 5, 20, 50, 100 years, when there's a lot more water around us? What do we want Bayville to be like? How do we start ourselves on the path toward that vision as soon as we can? I will say though about the Army Corps of Engineers, so they will come up with plans like that for small communities. They also are coming up with a very large plan focused around New York City and New York Harbor that does, I'm sure many of you know, have the potential to impact Bayville as well. So it's important also to keep an eye on that and what's going on there. It was sort of put on hold, the funding was taken away, it seems to be back on again, and they're working on it again, so it's something to keep tabs on for sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Allison, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
And as I've told Dan and the Conservation Commission, I'm here as a resource for any of these things that you want to work on. And Long Island Sound Study has just hired a whole slew of new folks, one for Nassau, one for Suffolk, one for Westchester counties, to help with this kind of resilience planning, outreach and education for the community and things like that. So I'll be connecting Dan with those folks as well.
This is terrific. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And Dan, thank you for putting this together. Appreciate it.
Mayor, since we've had this conversation, maybe Bill Weinstein, it would be good for him to just address some things as relates to flood insurance.
We have a resident in the audience tonight, an expert on flood insurance, so it's Rob.
Bob, what do you answer to?
Would you introduce yourself with your address, Rob? Thank you.
Sure, no problem. My name is Bob Bleistein at 38 East Slope Road here in Bayville. And I also own Eastern Classic Coverage, which is at 273 Bayville Avenue, right by Bell Creek. And I was asked to come tonight to speak to you in regard to FEMA and their new 2.0, which is basically the flood program reinvented. Flood program first, I guess, was enabled about 50 years ago under the current different determinations, flood zones, which we all know about, and now they have to change it. They realized with everything going on, and I'm shaking my head as you're talking and saying, oh my gosh, I've been hearing so much of this, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And someone joked about they bought a house at Fire Island and they were 3 houses away from the water, and now they're only 1 house away from the water. And I really don't want to see this happen in Bayville as well. But 2.0 is FEMA's answer, perhaps, to combat some of the increased prices for flood here in Bayville. And we are a community rated, in the community rated system for FEMA. So Doug, our building, who in our building department here, he's actually the liaison for FEMA for the village of Bayville. And he has courses and he has to do studies and he has all these forms to fill out every year. And actually a lot of work that he does to keep us within the confines of keeping our prices low, or lower here in Bayville. So it's actually a tremendous thing that maybe you might not realize, or maybe you do, but it is extremely serious and it gets worse and worse each year. So FEMA 2.0 now is a different way of looking at the rating. What they're doing is, instead of just saying you're in flood zone X or you're in flood zone A, B, D, whatever the flood zone might be. And in Bayville itself, we actually have a couple of different flood zones going on. and depending on where you live. And flood, by the way, is not necessarily someone living by the water. People that live in Cat Hollow, actually with the last storm, had flood issues. They might or might not have flood insurance, but it is out there to everybody, everyone in the country, and every property is different, and every property is rated separately as well. Flood insurance in general, people realize, okay, if I'm on Madison or whatever street, I need flood insurance. The banks make sure that flood insurance are mandatory when you go for a mortgage, especially a new home, because they want to be covered themselves. 2.0 is now something that is being done per risk or per property, as opposed to saying, okay, you're in this zone, your elevation is here, and this, that, and almost taking a guess at a round number for flood insurance. 2.0 is saying, no, we're now using technology, something that we didn't have 50 years ago when flood insurance was technically rewritten and rewritten every year after that, up until this point. 2.0 is saying, okay, we're going to use the geo-mapping, we're going to use LiDAR, we're going to use very different things that we've never used in the past, and use technology to our advantage. So a house that is in Bayville that is on the water or by the water might have a different pricing structure because of where they're located. Every house is different anyway, and flood insurance is different for every property. Now, they're being very specific to each risk or each property. So 2.0 for FEMA flood is saying, let's take the house, what is the house valued at? What is the property value? What is the actual value of the house? Is it worth $700,000 to rebuild? Is it worth $300,000 to rebuild? And they're looking at the foundation and everything else associated with that risk, and they are going to make it more applicable to that particular risk. So if there's a house and it's a two-bedroom house, and it's next to a house that happens to be a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, extra maybe 1,500 square foot house, they're going to be priced very differently now. It's going to affect Bayville. About 50% of Bayville is my estimate, where the prices are going to go up for the flood insurance, and another 50%, the other 50% where the price is actually going to stay level where it is, or perhaps go down even. So,
is this something that, if we have flood insurance already, when we go to do our renewal, is this something that's going to be automatically implemented, or something we need to ask
sure.
for reconsideration?
So there are 2 dates that are coming into play, or came into play. October 1st was one of them. So I could actually quote it 2 different ways, quote flood insurance 2 different ways. One with 2.0 and one with the old way. So for up until April 1st of 2022, I could actually quote them both ways. And obviously if there's a savings, we're staying with the current. But if there's a savings going on the new method with the 2.0, we're going that route. But once April 1st comes, then every single renewal will be re-rated and quoted on the new 2.0. So April 1st is a big day.
Okay.
I also want to say, with the rising waters that you were speaking about, it is going to definitely affect our village more and more each year. As you know, there are definitely more occurrences happening per year, and with that, yes, there are so many more issues that are going to happen even now in the next few years, let alone the next 80 years. So I agree, some items have to be addressed, because I don't think a wall around Bayville would also work. Other than that, on 2.0, the only other real changes are that with each risk, there might be a little bit of finessing and having more questions being asked of each homeowner about their property. I think that's a good thing when questions are asked, when the right questions are asked, and they can get to a better answer. So it's going to be a truer number for you. Also, the increases that we've been seeing in flood insurance for the past 10 years should not be as great as they have been because they're more realistic. The numbers are going to be a truer number to your particular home, and therefore they're not going to be guessing, especially based on other neighbors' properties, areas, particular areas. It's going to be specifically for your home. If your home is raised, you're going to get a discount. If you have flood vents in your house, you're going to get a discount. We're already in Bayville, so we get that discount already. So your particular home is actually going to dictate the price. Now, I do have to say that I encourage that if someone's doing work in their home, we do suggest that you give the village a call, even if, whatever village they're in. But if someone's in the village of Bayville, we suggest if you're going to do work, please give the village a call and speak to the building department, because adding those ducts do not cost that much money. And if it could be incorporated, say in a home being rebuilt or redone, it ends up being a nice savings each year. I think that's about it. Any questions?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. If anyone has further questions of Rob, his office is right across the street from the bank in the village, so you can just stop in there any day. You'll always take a question, Bob. I guess.
Take you one now.
Mayor, I'd like to do the hearing since
Sure.
it's scheduled for 6:45, so we can move that along. Notice is hereby given that the Board of Trustees of the Incorporated Village of Bayville will hold a public hearing commencing at 6:45 p.m. at the record show at 7:07 p.m. on Monday, November 22nd, 2021, Village Hall, 34 School Street, Bayville, New York, 11709, to consider the matters summarized below. The resurfacing of Oak Street, Cross Road, Bay Street, Shore Drive, and Meadow Street, all of which are non-through streets, as proposed by Tom Masterson, an authorized representative for the petitioners of the Oak Neck Park Property Owners Association, seeking to maintain/improve said streets located within the private street improvement district. The Board of Trustees will also consider the assessment, levy, and collection of administrative and professional costs and reasonable village council fees and expenses of the survey and report and costs of the public hearing, including publication costs and public stenography fees and any other necessary costs incurred by the village against all properties abutting the subject streets. Persons who may suffer from disability which will prevent them from participating in said hearing should notify Maria Alfano Party, village clerk treasurer at 516-628-1439 in sufficient time to permit such arrangements to be made to enable such persons to participate in said hearing. By order of the Board of Trustees, Incorporated Village of Bayville, Maria Alfano Party, village clerk treasurer, and the public hearing notice is dated November 5th, 2021. For the record, there is an affidavit of publication in the Newsday, there's an affidavit of posting, and there's an affidavit of mailing, all as required by the village code. Mr. Masterson is somewhere here, I hope, thank you, to represent the association.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So this is our third appearance here. We've gone through the process. We went and had a petition signed by more than 50% of our homeowners. We have 38 properties in our association. As of now, we have 30 yeses. We have 3 noes, one of which just sold their house, so it's really 2 no's, and 5 non-responses. Okay, so we have an overwhelming majority that are in favor of this road paving project. I'm not sure what information you need from me. You want me to talk to financials, what it's going to be broken down to, or something like?
Well, at this point in time, the board would be deciding to adopt your street improvement maintenance plan. So which one is it out of the 3 estimates you received that you were looking to go with?
Okay. The plan we decided to go with was with United Paving, which they just recently did Perry Avenue and Godfrey for the village. He gave us a quote for $60,000.
Is that 60,000 even, Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Or the other? Okay.
Yep. So I broke it down for a cost in 2 ways. I broke it down, right now we're at 30 people that are willing to pay for it. So I broke it down for that. Well, let me start over. The 60,000, we have $8,000 in our bank account that we can add, we can pay for that. So we bring it down to $52,000 total cost for the association. Divided by 30 people that are currently willing to pay for it, that would bring the cost down to $1,734 per property. Now, when it comes down to an assessment or whatever for the remaining people that are not going to pay, when it's broken down, 52,000 divided by 38 would be $1,368.42 per property. Another thing we know that we have to do, once we know when we're going to get the work done, I'm going to check with the utility companies and make sure there's not going to be any digging in the area before or after the work is done, because that wouldn't be good. So I'm aware of that, and that will be done. Trying to think of what else I'm not sure what other information you guys need. Any questions or?
I didn't get the number. If you had $52,000 and 30 people participating, what's your?
$1,734 even. So that's what everybody that's willing to pay right now would pay. And then.
That's of the 30 that wish to pay, yeah?
What's that?
That's of the 30 that wish to pay.
Yes.
That's what I
But
thought.
haven't some of those 30 already given you money? That's why you got the 8,000?
No, because that number isn't determined
Where
yet.
did
In
you get
fact,
the 8,000?
I just got a new, the 8,000's in our treasury, in our bank account.
In your,
For the association.
okay.
Yes. In fact, we have almost 9,000, but the remainder will cover any costs for advertising and there's some associated costs there.
Do the 8 people, or actually 3 people who have said no, do they have a problem with you using that 8,000? Or
That-
do they have no say?
That has not been expressed, no. It's just,
They don't want to lay out more?
well, one of the 3 just sold their house, so they're not even a voice right now. I reached out to the new people that bought the house, I sent them a letter, and I've been walking my dog by their house every day, hoping that I can catch them, but it's just,
Welcome
I haven't
to
been
the
able to.
community.
What's that?
Welcome to the community.
Yeah. So, no, I'm trying to make sure that everybody knows exactly what's going on. I'm doing everything I can to make sure everybody's aware of the costs and everything. And like I said, everybody's enthusiastic about it, except for maybe a couple people. And they're not ardently against it. They're just, they didn't want to sign my petition at the time. 2 of them. The 3rd one was because they were selling their house. We have a bank-owned property, which is one of the 5 remaining. And then we have property owners that are renting, which I have sent letters to, but I have no response.
Have they seen the breakdown of costs? Because it's a minimum cost.
I haven't been able to communicate to them what, and I'm happy to.
What was the highest quote you got?
Oh, it was in the 90s. Yeah.
I believe it was McGowan when I went.
McGowan was, I have it right here. I don't have the total. Probably, oh, here we go. Doesn't have a total.
No, it didn't, but when I added it, I came to
It's
close to
90%.
100, I thought it was over 100,000.
Yeah, I'm surprised it didn't have a total one. Yeah, he was definitely the highest.
Yes, I'm going through the papers before the.
Oh, and by the way, I just spoke with Mike Fem, who's with United Paving. I spoke with him last week and said, do you anticipate price going up? Are we going to have a shock in the spring when we say we'll set a date and do the paving? He doesn't anticipate that. He can't guarantee it, but he said at worst, maybe 5%, you know, depending on the price of asphalt and fuel, but he doesn't anticipate anything dramatically increasing.
Will the bank-owned property possibly give you funds for this?
I haven't been able to get anybody to even respond to my
Pay the taxes.
inquiries. Yeah.
So the way it looks for it is there are 38 properties in the association.
Mhm.
30 are yes, and in the end, it looks like there would be 8 that would possibly be recalcitrant and would have to be assessed on their taxes for collection of their share, their
Yes.
proportionate share. At this time, it would be for the board to adopt the street improvement or maintenance plan as presented by Mr. Masterson to use United Paving for the work to be done. And Mayor, if you'd like to ask if there's anyone in the audience who would like to have a chance to address the board before you make any resolutions here.
Is there anyone in the audience tonight that has a comment to add to Mr. Masterson's proposal?
Sure. I'd love to know why.
Well, may we start with your name and address, please?
David Kornreich, 5 Oak Street,
Could you spell your last name, please, Mr. Conrad?
Kornreich.
Thank you.
3 of the 4 streets don't need to be paved. So I don't understand why we're here.
We have a report from the building inspector, Maria, is that correct?
Yes.
Short Drive definitely needs to be repaved. Oak Street, Cross Street, and Bay. There's no real even potholes on those streets.
Can I talk? So we had, in April, we had our normal yearly meeting for the association. And every year when we have our meeting, the roads are always the subject. I became president of the association in April just because the people before me have been it for several years. So I became president, and then we adopted the idea like, all right, let's get quotes on, because everybody's talking about getting the roads done. That's all they ever talk about. And patching every year, patching. Let's look into a solution to repave the roads. The last time they were done was in 2000, 21 years ago. So I did that, and that's what started this process.
Can I ask you a
There's a
question?
dramatic, everybody in the association is for it except for 2 people. Well, you were one of the 2 people.
I think there's more than that.
There's not, I can show you, This is the petition right here. This is
Mr.
the-
Cornridge and Mr. Masterson, you need to address the
I'm
board
sorry,
directly.
I'm sorry.
How many people do you have at these meetings? When you had your meeting, how many people, how many of the neighbors were there?
The
I'm curious.
Should I go back and forth, or?
Well, no, I think the board can make a decision from what we have on hand. The property, the road and the property has been inspected by the building inspector. Mr. Masterson has the sufficient number of signatures. I respect the fact that you don't agree, but at some point, Mr. Masterson and the other residents have a right to proceed, and with what's been presented to us, we'll take a vote on it.
I do have a record of who was present when we made the decision at the meeting, so, at the meeting.
We require signatures.
We have a petition that Mr. Masterson.
I now have 30 signatures.
We have.
Yes.
We have it for the record.
That speaks for itself.
So the first motion, unless there's anybody else that needs to address the,
Is there anyone else that would like to add a comment? Please.
Yeah, my name is William Strapper, I live at 14 Bay Street, same street that Tom is on.
Can I ask you to come?
Even though,
Can I ask you to come to the podium, sir? And stay down.
William Strapper,
Thank you.
14 Bay, did you say, Mr.
14 Bay.
Thank you.
and even though from a distance, the roads may not look that bad, but they are almost like puzzle pieces. If you take a look at it, if you just turn one over, and the whole efforts we've made to just do patches doesn't work. Because as soon as you take up one little piece, the next piece comes up. And there are a number of pieces that are, I mean, you can lift it up with your hand if you wanted to. So, you know, I don't know, the resistance that are met by some of the people. They may just, maybe in front of their house, it might not be as bad. I think that may be the reason why. And the other reason why some of the people that have not responded, I've been the treasurer for that for over 30 years with the association. And the people who are not responding traditionally don't come to meetings, don't acknowledge any kind of correspondence from the association. So them not responding to Tom is kind of like in kind with the way they've been for decades.
I appreciate your comments, sir. Any other comments from the audience? Yes, sir.
Sean Landcutter, 2 Meadow Street. I just wanted to say I agree with everything that these two gentlemen have stated.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, with that, Maria, I think you can put it up for a...
Well, I'd like to first have a motion from the board to close the public hearing at 7:23.
I move to close the public hearing.
I second.
Thank you, trustee Nitro, and trustee Farnell, trustee Santoro,
Yes.
trustee Farnell.
Yes.
Trustee Nitro.
Yes.
Mayor Natale.
Yes.
Now, the next motion required would be to adopt the street improvement and maintenance plan as presented, to accept the proposal provided by Mr. Masterson as the representative, that being the one for United Paving for a total cost of $60,000. You can authorize this at this time.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, trustee Santoro.
A second.
Thank you, trustee Farnell. Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Trustee Farnell?
Yes.
Trustee Nitro?
Yes.
Mayor Natale.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Masterson, you can proceed. We're expecting that you wouldn't be doing this work probably until the spring at this point in time.
Oh, yeah, yes, when I spoke to the contractor, he said probably late, sometime in May, probably, late April, May.
We may ask for a report from you possibly in January to give us some update as to the status of the proposal and the work and what's planned going ahead.
Sure.
Okay?
No problem.
Well, what Nikki's bringing to my attention, we will speak later about when we would schedule the hearing for the assessment to the Calcitrate homeowners.
Okay.
Between now and then, it's recommended that you do your best to collect from those homeowners.
Okay,
Okay?
so I should start getting collecting money now.
Sure.
Okay, okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
My hesitance so far is I wanted to establish the exact number of, you know.
You're gonna need to pay, yeah, you're gonna need to pay for it,
Yes.
get
Yes.
done, and then after that.
Yeah, I just wanted to make
If we
sure I
have
had
the
the right
right
numbers.
numbers, then we'll have another hearing.
Yep,
Okay, so you're aware of that?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
no problem.
Very good.
Mr. Messrs, one question, not after voting, what we voted on. Was any of your estimates broken down into sections of the 3 streets?
Yes, there's 5 streets. Originally, we were gonna do it on a by-street basis. We were gonna do it by, Bay Street was gonna vote and do their own street, or we're gonna do Oak Street. And then overwhelmingly, at our meetings, they just said, let's just do the whole association and break it down per property, that's it. You know, we were talking about frontage. Some houses have twice the frontage on one road, and then, and it just.
I just wanted to see whether you looked at it from the perspective of breaking it out.
No, in fact, United broke it down by street.
Okay, I'm
You
looking
do
at
have that, I believe, I don't think I submitted that, yes.
But that's only because you're doing it all at once. What I'm saying is if you did this by street over the course of time, it would be significant, might very well be significantly more than the
When he gave us a
$60,000.
quote, it's him thinking that we were gonna do it by street though. It wasn't for the whole association. He did break it down per street because we weren't sure we were gonna do the whole association or break it, you know, have votes per street.
Okay. My curiosity is satisfied, thank you.
Thank you.
That's it?
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
We'll be in touch, as I said, towards January, probably, okay?
Thank you.
Mayor, Board, if we may continue with the regular business before the board?
Yes, please.
Okay, the first item on the agenda are warrants and claims. Do I have a motion to accept the warrants and claims as presented in order?
I so move.
Do I have a second?
I know,
it's amazing, right? Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Trustee Cornell? Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Mayor Tingzel? The next item on the prior meeting's minutes, which are the minutes from the October 25th, 2021 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those?
Oh, you want to hold big one? I'm sorry.
Thank you, Trustee Santoro.
Chit chat.
Do I have a second on the prior meeting minutes?
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Cornell. Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Trustee Cornell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Mayor Tingzel?
Yes.
The next 2 items on the agenda are proposals from Bridge Marine. The first proposal is to remove and reinstall all the docks and 2 gangways at West Harbor and all the fishing floats and fingers number 2, 1W and 3W at Creek Beach for a total of $9,200. The second proposal is to inspect moorings for the upcoming 2022 boating season as the rates detailed in the proposal dated October 27, 2021. Is there a motion to accept the 2 proposals?
Who's the liaison?
Both of these were discussed with the voting committee. They did ask for us to obtain the proposals, and the proposals were obtained accordingly.
We assume they checked those against the prior years.
The mooring proposal does have an increase from the year before slightly, which will then be accounted for in fees charged going forward, and also the removal and the installation does have a slight increase over last year.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion or?
I move that we approve the
The 2 proposals?
2 proposals from Bridge Marine for the removal and reinstallation of the docks and the gangways, and the inspection of moorings for the upcoming 2020 boating season.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
2022.
I'll second.
Thank you, trustee Parnell. Trustee Centura?
Yes.
Trustee Parnell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Mayor Di Natale?
Yes.
The next item would be a resolution that you, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Bayville, acknowledge that the required examination or audit for year end May 31st, 2021 was conducted as per section 2019-A of the Uniform Justice Court account, which requires that the town and village justices annually provide their court records and dockets to their respective town and village auditing boards, and that such records then be examined or audited, and the fact be entered into the minutes of the board's proceedings. And you were all provided with the audit as prepared by Naraki and Smith. So again, the motion is to acknowledge and that and put into the records that the records of the Bayville Village Justice Court have been examined and audited.
I'll make a motion that the Bayville Village Justice Court order.
Thank you, trustee Parnell. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, trustee Centura. Trustee Centura?
Yes.
Trustee Parnell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Mayor Di Natale?
Yes.
The next item is the hiring of several individuals for positions here within the Village of Bayville. The first is a secretary to the ZBA, and that's a resolution to hire Brittany Slade as secretary to the Board of Zoning Appeals at an hourly rate of $25. This is a part-time position in accordance with Nassau County Civil Service Rules and Regulations. The second part is to hire Christopher Montel as Assistant to Highway Supervisor, an annual salary of $65,000 in accordance with Nassau County Civil Service Rules and Regulations. And the final is the resolution to hire Joseph Baruso as a laborer at an annual salary of $31,987.68 as per the collective bargaining agreement in effect in accordance with Nassau County Civil Service Rules and Regulations. Do I have a motion?
I move we accept the resolution, or we approve a resolution to hire Brittany Slade, Christopher Montel, and Joseph Baruso. But Ms. Slade won't be the secretary for any of the other boards?
She will act as the secretary to planning and Carl also.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Thank you, trustee Parnell. Trustee Centura?
Yes.
Trustee Parnell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Mayor Di Natale?
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is a resolution that authorizes the mayor or authorized officers to execute and deliver a grant disbursement agreement by and between the Dormitory Authority, State of New York, DASNY, and the Incorporated Village of Bayville for DASNY State and Municipal Facilities Program Grant Project ID 23671 for the purchase of heavy-duty dump truck. This was a grant of $50,000 that was provided to the village through Assemblyman Montesano, and we're at the point now where we need to execute the grant disbursement agreement so as to collect the funds.
I move that we authorize the mayor to execute and deliver a grant disbursement agreement by and between DASNY and the Incorporated Village of Bayville.
And that will be mayor or authorized officers, please.
Certainly, that's what the mayor wants.
I'll second.
Thank you, trustee Parnell. Trustee Centura?
Yes.
Trustee Parnell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Mayor Di Natale?
Yes.
The next item is a resolution to acknowledge the retirement of Stephen Siegel after 36 years of service here at the Village of Bayville. Stephen started working for the village in 1985, and I believe that you, Mayor, and Board wish Stephen well in his retirement.
We do, certainly do.
Who would like to make the motion to wish Stephen well?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, trustee Santoro.
I'll second.
Thank you, trustee Farnell. Trustee Santoro.
Yes.
Trustee Farnell.
Yes.
Trustee Nigro.
Yes.
Mayor Unitali.
Yes.
The next item is a proposal, a proposal for the purchase of pumps. So it's a resolution to approve the proposal from Pump Biz for the procurement of two 4-inch Honda engine powered trash pumps for a total cost of $7,380. Big Valley Nursery, Thompson Pump, and Pump Direct were also contacted for proposals. These proposals were reviewed with Giuseppe Siccaranza, the Superintendent of Public Works, with Trustee Minicozy, and with input from H2M as relates to the required pumps to handle mostly the East End area.
Trash pumps means it screens trash from being sucked into the pump, is that what it means?
It's, trash pump means that it can handle more than just water. So if there's some type of debris in it, it will actually pump that debris as well.
Okay, thank you. So, you know.
Okay, I have the resolution before you. I need a motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, trustee Santoro.
I'll second.
Thank you, trustee Nigro. Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Trustee Farnell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Mayor Unitali.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is a resolution to approve a proposal from Earth Repair LLC to perform cleaning of drainage systems at the skating rink and other locations, including structures and associated pipelines, at a rate of $1,900 per 4-hour shift. Originally, when we worked with Earth Repair, they quoted us a price of for one shift of over $7,000. Then in going back and discussing with them further, it was discovered that they have a current pricing agreement that was pre-bid with the town of Hempstead under their requirements contract PW number 12-20, and that we, the village, can piggyback onto that previously bid agreement. So the resolution would be to approve that proposal and then be able to use Earth Repair in the future for our pumping, the village's pumping needs.
Make the resolution.
The motion, thank you, trustee Santoro. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, trustee Farnell. Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Trustee Farnell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Mayor Unitali.
Yes.
The next item, these few last items were added at the last minute. The kiosk at the Commons is in desperate need of repair. Superintendent Siccaranza has taken a look at it, looked at it in terms of possible repair, and it's not something that could be repaired. So we have a proposal here from A+ Graphics and Signs for a total of $1,985 to build, I guess, okay, a PVC painted and purchase and install a PVC painted and carved and vinyl lettering outdoor lockable enclosed tap board. It would be two-sided, okay. It also we were able to save on the expense of the new kiosk or bulletin board because the pieces we have from the existing kiosk are being reused on the new sign. So I believe that you have the picture of it in front of you and that it will be an improvement to our Bayville Commons area to have a nice new bulletin board sign there.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, trustee Santoro.
And I'll second it.
Thank you, trustee Farnell. Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Trustee Farnell? Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Mayor Unitali.
Yes.
Just have to go to go over the color. I'm just realizing.
You want me to address it now?
If you know that.
Yes, I already anticipated the question of the color. The color, the piece that is used for the actual board is PVC, which comes naturally white. If we were to put it as a color, whether it be blue, green, we'd have to paint that PVC piece. It doesn't hold up as well. So as per the sign guy suggested that in his experience, it's better to leave it white and use our colors as a border and still use our emblem at the top, which will be better because of our type of climate that we have between the salt water and the wind.
Maybe that shape, but it's going to look like this.
Can I ask you a question? Madam Clerk Treasurer, is there any village-owned property at the other end of town where a similar sign can be placed so people at the other end of the village could see the, what would be available?
Communities.
Community center.
Other than the community center further west, no, that would be easily accessible to residents.
You know, we chatted some about that, Bob, and we really don't have those kind of places. Personally, I want to put one in IGA because there isn't a spot in the village that gets more traffic than IGA. But maybe another sign another day at the post office, maybe that would be more neutral. But that's a topic for another day.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, before
Just
you-
to add on that, we are only going to use 2 of the enclosures that is at the existing kiosk. So we will have 2 that I will safeguard. If we do decide to use another sign at some other location, we still have the 2 enclosures.
You've got some hardware.
Yes, that will also keep our costs down.
Terrific, thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next item, again, recently added, is a resolution to approve the proposal from American Paving to resurface the DPW driveway at Village Hall for a total cost of $3,275. And I would like Giuseppe to address that with you before you vote.
There is a certain area that's going to be done. It's not the entire parking area. There's one area of our parking lot that is very much a trip hazard, and it's not only for the manpower that we work here, but if someone was to come to our site, it could be something that someone could get seriously injured. We're not at the point to repave the entire parking lot. This is just basically an area right outside the mechanic shop, which is very, very loose, and every time the trucks go by, whether it be our pickup or our sanitation trucks, they're moving the actual asphalt. So this is going to be a way to actually cut the area. It's not completely taken out. Basically what's done is along the perimeter, they cut that asphalt out so that the new layer that goes over it has an area that it binds to, so that when a truck goes over it, it doesn't shift. And it's just a 80 by 14 area. And it's about an inch and a half once it's asphalt. And it just covers all the holes. We attempted to do it with coal patch, but the coal patch doesn't hold up as well, and it's too large of an area to continue with this coal patch.
Okay.
Just to bring to the attention of the board, for anyone that's not been into the back of the building, whether the board members or the residents, the Giuseppe here has done an incredible job of cleaning, organizing, and straightening out a yard that's been in desperate need of reorganizing. And I compliment you for that publicly.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank
I'll
you. That's
second.
Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Thank you, Trustee Nigro. Trustee Farnell? Trustee Santoro, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Trustee Farnell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Mayor D'Natale?
Yes.
And the final item that was added actually has to do with the flagpole out here at Village Hall. Up until there was a pole replacement done, there was a dusk to dawn light across the street on the pole that would shine on the flagpole and keep the flag properly illuminated in the evening. Once PSEG replaced that pole, they advised that they now no longer put lights on poles that shine across streets. So we're on our own to light the flagpole. So we have a proposal here from a Jonathan Blind Electric, and it's to supply and install an LED floodlight on the flagpole. It's a photo cell, so it would turn on and off, right, based on daylight or evening, for a cost of $1,250, and that would properly illuminate the flag here at Village Hall.
Interesting name for it, I like
I was gonna say, we're buying light from the blind.
I'll make a motion to accept the lighting proposal.
Thank you, Trustee Parnell.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Nigro. Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Trustee Parnell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Mayor Ian-Callen?
Yes. That's gonna be right.
Thank you. I do not have any other items before the board this evening, so I turn it over to Mayor Ian-Callen.
Are there any residents in the audience that would care to make any statements tonight? Questions, concerns, remarks?
Just want to thank you for cleaning out the drains on Merritt Lane.
Oh, cool.
I saw him out there doing that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Hi, I'm Barbara Lavona. I'm going to talk about something that's not going to cost money. I don't know if you heard from the Bayville Arts Council about the art show that's going to be in the museum?
Yes.
Oh, so you guys are aware of it then? Okay.
You're going, wait, we're going to send an email blast out on that.
Okay. Only because some of my work is.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Is it for sale?
Make an offer.
$75.
Yeah. I have, 3 different things that, 3 different mediums, so that's what they wanted, diversity.
We can make an arrangement where we could have bids on it.
Yeah, there you go.
You knew there was a lot of talent in Bayville.
There's a lot of talent in Bayville. I didn't know. I was not aware. I was like, wow, very good. Yeah.
We'll look forward to that.
Yeah,
That's
thanks.
great. Thank you.
Anything else?
With that, we conclude the evening.
Okay, so I'll
Thank
take a
you.
motion to close the meeting at 7:47 p.m.
I move to close the meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Parnell.
No.
Trustee Santoro?
Yes.
Trustee Parnell?
Yes.
Trustee Nigro?
Yes.
Mayor Ian-Callen?
Yes.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Mayor wanted to pardon 2 turkeys, but they didn't show up on the meeting.
Have a good night. Happy
Happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.